Okay, so now let's go through paper 2, which is a multiple choice extended option for biology. That's IGCSE from Cambridge International Examinations, CIE, and October-November 2017, and the code is 0610/21. All right, let's get started.
This is very exciting.
Question 1. Which term is defined as all of the chemical reactions that occur in cells? Every single chemical reaction put together. What do they call it? Photosynthesis? No, that just happens in plants. Protein synthesis? No, that's just making of proteins. There's lots of other chemical reactions of making proteins. Respiration, again, making energy using oxygen, or anaerobic respiration without using oxygen. And metabolism, that is all of the reactions put together, so the answer is D. Question 2. The diagram shows a section of DNA from a chimpanzee. Which diagram shows a section of DNA from the organism that is most closely related to the chimpanzee? Okay, so you can tell how closely related organisms are by how similar their DNA is. So all we have to do is look at the code and see how many bases are different. So let's look at A. So first one, AA, same. GG, same thing. CC, same thing. TT, the same. AA is the same. CC is the same. AA is the same. GG is the same. AA is the same. And G and T, those are different. So the first one, there's only one difference. That looks like, unless another one's exactly the same, I'm going to say A is probably the answer. But if we look at 2, look at B. AA, GG, CC, TT, AA, CC, AA, GG, AT, that's different. GT, that's also different. So we have 2 differences. All right. Then we have AA, GT, oh, that's a different one. CC, TA, that's a different one. AA, CC, AA, GG, AT, that's a different one. GT, that's a different one. That's 4. And AAGT, that's different. CCTT, AACC, AAGG, AT, and GT. Okay, so that's 3. So the one that's most closely related is A, because there's only one difference in that gene. Question 3. The length of a mitochondrion in a photomicrograph is 15 millimeters. The actual length of the mitochondrion is 3, that's actually micrometers. It just isn't showing up very well. Micrometers. What is the magnification of the photomicrograph? Okay, so first of all, the first thing we'll look at is that micrometers and millimeters are obviously not the same thing. Now, it doesn't matter if you convert millimeters into micrometers or micrometers into millimeters. It really doesn't matter as long as they're the same unit. Okay, so the equation you should use for this, magnification equals the drawing, or the photomicrograph, over the actual size. Okay, so that equals, so the drawing, or the photomicrograph, is 15 millimeters, and divided by 3 micrometers. Now, in order to convert, let's say, millimeters to micrometers, that is, you multiply it by 1,000. All right, so that equals 15,000 micrometers, or over 3 micrometers, and the answer to that is 5,000. Okay, and as I said, you can convert micrometers into millimeters by dividing by 1,000. So that is, it's 5,000 times magnified. Question 4. The diagrams show a leaf and its internal structure. What are the levels of organization of the labeled structures? Okay, sometimes it's easier to think of the levels of organization in terms of the human body rather than plants. So if we say a leaf, well, that is equivalent to, say, the heart. And the heart is an organ. Okay, so it's probably the answer is B. So an organ system, to distinguish between an organ and an organ system, in the human body, the organ system would be the circulatory system. So the heart with the arteries and veins and capillaries all working together to get blood around the body. Now with the leaf, it's one organ with many different tissues working to basically create energy for the plant. And that does that, you're doing transpiration bringing water up from the roots and all that. So the organ system that would relate to this is basically a bunch of leaves working together, and the petioles that are attached, and the stems that are attached to the stems, and how they all work together to perform the same function. So it's not an organ system, it's one organ, a bunch of tissues working together for the same thing. Okay, now if we look at 2, it's pointed to one individual circle, one individual cell. So it makes sense that it's a cell. Looks like the answer is B, but we'll check. And 3, it's pointing to a section, this whole spongy mesophyll section. Yes, it's mainly one type of cell. There's a few other types of cells in there, and the whole purpose of that is to get water to diffuse into the empty spaces as gas, so it can then diffuse out of the stomata. So that is a tissue. Similar cells working together to perform the same function. Okay, so the answer is B. Question 5. Different factors affect the rate of diffusion of molecules across a membrane. Which row represents changes to factors that will increase the rate of diffusion? So what increases the rate of diffusion? A few things. Concentration gradient across a membrane. Well, if that's increased, then the rate of diffusion can increase. If the membrane is thinner, you can get more stuff across, so it's decreased. A thicker membrane is more difficult for things to pass. Okay, surface area of the membrane. Well, the more surface area, the more diffusion you can get, so increase in surface area. And temperature, well, if the temperature is higher, then you can get more movement of particles, so that means more diffusion, so increase. So it looks like the answer to this is C. Question 6. A red blood cell and a palisade mesophyll cell are placed in a solution which has a higher water potential than the cells. What will happen to each cell? Okay, so a red blood cell, that's our biconcave red blood cell, has lots of dissolved stuff inside. If the solution has a higher water potential, that means there's more water than other dissolved stuff. And so the water will go in to where there's less water. Okay, so it will go in. The cell will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and if the water potential is high enough, it will burst. There's nothing holding the cell together. Okay, it certainly isn't going to go out because it has a higher water potential. It has more water outside already, so why would the water leave? Okay, it has to go down the concentration gradient, or water potential gradient, sorry. The palisade mesophyll cells, now they're slightly different. And the reason why they're different to the red blood cell is they have that extra layer around the outside so that the cells can expand. So when the water goes in, same deal. There's lots of stuff dissolved inside and not a lot of stuff outside. Water goes in. This is H2O going in here. This is H2O. Okay, it will go in, but the pressure will increase in here, but the cell wall on the outside makes it so the cell doesn't burst. And that means that it just gains mass. It doesn't just burst. So the answer to this question is B. Question 7. The diagram shows a protease molecule catalyzing the breakdown of a protein molecule. Okay, which are the parts labeled P, Q, R, and S? Okay, so this is the protein. And this is what's being broken down. It's kind of snipping it here, kind of cutting it into little pieces. And this is the enzyme. Okay, well, the catalase enzyme. Okay, so as I said, S is the enzyme. S is the catalase. So it's one of these two. Now P. P is the place where it's where it's attaching. So that is known as the active site. So P is the active site. Q is the protein. Okay, so that is the substrate. Okay, so that's Q is the substrate. And then that leaves R, that's the product. So the answer is D. Question 8. The diagram shows the structure of a part of a DNA molecule. Okay, so this is DNA. We have our double helix. What does X represent? X is, it's not an amino acid because that has to do with proteins. It's not a protein because it's a DNA molecule. They're different molecules. It's not carbon. There is some carbon in there, but there's more than just carbon in there. It is the base, A, T, G, or C. Question 9. Which statement about enzymes is correct? Okay, enzymes become part of the product. No, that would mean they'd be used up. That is part of the definition of an enzyme, is that it's not used up. So it doesn't become part of the product. Lowering the pH always slows down the reaction rate. Well, if the enzyme has an optimum pH that's very low, it's not going to slow down the reaction rate. It's going to increase the reaction rate. Increasing the temperature always increases the rate of the reaction rate. Well, it will increase the reaction rate until you get to the optimum temperature, and then it will slow it down because the enzyme will denature. And the specificity of an enzyme depends on the shape of its active site. That is absolutely correct. The answer is D. Question 10. Which enzyme is used to produce clear apple juice? All right, so amylase. Nope, amylase, that breaks down starch. Lipase, that breaks down lipids or fats, oils, same thing really. Pectinase, this breaks down pectin. And pectin is what makes apple juice lumpy. And that's it needs. So if it breaks down the lumpy bits of the apple juice, then it becomes clear. And protease, nope, that breaks down proteins. There we go. Question 11. Which structure would be found in large numbers in cells that have a high energy requirement, Okay, so chloroplasts, they produce sugars. Endoplasmic reticulum, they package proteins, and they have the ribosomes on to create proteins. Okay, large vacuole, that stores cell sap and is helpful for the support of a plant, so it stays nice and turgid. Mitochondria, those produce energy. So D. Question 12. What must be increased in the diet of a person suffering from constipation? If you're suffering from constipation, fats are not a good response. They can sometimes constipate you more. They can sometimes make things go very loose. Fats are not a good option if you're constipated. Fiber, yes. Fiber creates a bulk, and the small intestines and the large intestines, the intestines detect that there is something there and it can push it along. Okay, iron, nope, iron can actually constipate you more. And protein, no, that just helps with muscles and repairing and a lot of things, but not to do with constipation. So the answer is B, fiber. Question 13. Which disease can be caused by a deficiency of iron in the diet? Okay, anemia. Anemia is the deficiency of iron in the diet. So kwashiorkor and marasmus, those are to do with malnutrition, not getting enough protein or energy. And rickets, that's to do with not getting enough vitamin D. All right, so the answer is A, anemia, not getting enough iron. Question 14. The diagram shows a human alimentary canal with a string marked in meters beside it. Okay, it almost shows up on the screen, but not quite. Okay, so the very top at 0 meters, there's the esophagus. Then at each meter down, the string next to it. At the very bottom, it says it's the anus, and that's at 9 meters. So how long is the small intestine? Okay, so at the beginning here, we have the esophagus. That's not the small intestine. Then we have the stomach. That's not the small intestine. And then we start with the small intestine. This whole section here is the small intestine. And then once we get down to about here, we get to the large intestine and the colon, so the colon and the anus. All right, so the only part that's small intestine is from about 1 to 7. So that means it's 6 meters long. And that's one of our answers, answer B. Question 15. The graph shows the concentration of oxygen in the air spaces in a green leaf of a plant during a 12-hour period. Okay, which statement about carbon dioxide in the air spaces during time X is correct? Okay, so we're looking at this graph and it says about concentration of oxygen in the air spaces, and it's asking about concentration of carbon dioxide. Well, the reason why is because at this point oxygen is being used up, and that's because aerobic respiration uses oxygen. What does it do with carbon dioxide? It produces carbon dioxide. All right, so it uses oxygen and produces carbon dioxide. That's why the oxygen is being reduced. So carbon dioxide is being produced. Well, it looks like it's being produced because it produces carbon dioxide. So it's so this is an option. And this one, carbon dioxide is being produced. That's also an option. Carbon dioxide is being used up. Nope. Carbon dioxide is not being used up. So it's not C or D. Okay. Now let's look at the because. Because, for A, the rate of photosynthesis is greater than the rate of respiration. No, if you look at this, as I said, it's aerobic respiration. That's the majority of the stuff happening at time X, which means it's not that one. Now, carbon dioxide is being produced because the rate of respiration is greater than the rate of photosynthesis. That looks like it's the answer, because aerobic respiration uses up the oxygen, and when it's using up the oxygen, it produces carbon dioxide. It doesn't mean that there's no photosynthesis happening. It's just there's less. Question 16. What is a description of transpiration? Okay, the exchange of gases between the leaf and the atmosphere. Nope. That is diffusion. Transpiration is just to do with water. So loss of water vapor from the leaves and stems of a plant. That looks like it's a good answer. Is it the movement of water from the roots to the leaves? No, the movement of water, it's one of the reasons water moves up is because of the pull of transpiration, but that's not a description of transpiration. That is an effect of transpiration. And D, the movement of water through the cells of the leaf. No, that just goes through osmosis. Okay, so it's not D. Osmosis or diffusion, depending on if it's water vapor in the air spaces or if it's water going between cells. Okay, so the answer is B. Question 17. The diagram shows the vessels associated with the flow of fluids to and from body cells. Which is the lymph vessel? All right, so at A, we have a pretty wide vessel and it has thick walls. So these are thick muscular walls. This would be an artery. At C, we have thin walls and we have a valve. So that looks to me like a vein. And what connects an artery and a vein? Well, that is a capillary. Now fluids, this is obviously blood that goes through there. That's the blood. Now some of the fluids leak out and in through the capillaries. Okay, it's not just the oxygen and carbon dioxide and nutrients. There's also some water and some other things. And this creates up the tissue fluid. Okay, the fluid that surrounds all the cells and then it goes into the cells. And some of that tissue fluid will go into these other vessels. And these vessels have valves. They are narrow, they're thin, and some of them don't end. If they don't connect, it doesn't necessarily connect in a circuit. Some of them connect to other things and some of them don't. They just end. These are the lymph vessels. All right. So that's how the lymphatic system pretty much works, is some of the tissue fluid goes into the lymph vessels. And then the lymph vessels will move that tissue fluid along due to your muscles moving. So that's one of the reasons you have to move around so your lymph can flow through your body. And the valves keep it as a one-way flow. There we go. So the answer is B. Question 18. The diagram shows a cross-section through a human blood vessel. Okay, so this blood vessel has a thick, elastic, and fibrous connective tissue layer. Then it has a thick muscular layer and a pretty wide lumen. The middle bit is the lumen, the space in between. But it's much narrower than the rest of it. Okay, which type of blood vessel does the diagram show? Well, this shows an artery. Okay, a capillary, the wall would be one cell thick. There'd be no muscle layer, no elastic fibrous connective tissue. It would just be one cell thick and be very narrow. A vein you don't have the muscle layer, and the elastic fibrous connective tissue would be much less. Well, the muscle layer is much, much thinner. And you might even see part of a valve. A ventricle, well, that's not even a blood vessel. That's a chamber of the heart. Okay, so the answer is definitely A. Question 19. Which are both chemical barriers to the transmission of pathogens? So mucus and stomach acid. Well, mucus is a chemical barrier. It is a chemical that traps the pathogens. And stomach acid is a chemical that can break down some pathogens. So that looks like a pretty good answer to me. Mucus and white blood cells. Well, white blood cells, they're not chemical, they're not physical, they're more of a biological barrier. So they're full cells, they're not just a chemical. Okay, skin and hairs in the nose. So skin and hairs, those are both physical barriers. Okay, skin, that is again a physical barrier. Okay, sorry, the writing is terrible. That's on this one, physical barrier. Stomach acid, yes, that's a chemical barrier. So the answer to this question is A. Question 20. The table shows some of the changes that occur during breathing. Which changes occur to cause inspiration? Oh, I love that term. I don't know why they don't just say inhalation and exhalation. They're the same thing. Inhalation, CIE likes to use the term inspiration. Okay, to me, inspiration is a great idea that you're inspired to do something. But another meaning of inspiration is inhalation or breathing in. Exhalation, CIE likes to use the term expiration, which makes me think of an expiration date on yogurt or something similar. Okay, so expiration is kind of like dying, but expiration also means breathing out or exhalation. So don't get confused. Don't worry about if it sounds silly. It's the same thing. Inspiration means breathing in. Okay, so from contracted to relaxed, and this is from relaxed to contracted. Here's our pleural cavity with our lungs inside. When the diaphragm is relaxed, it is pulled up due to the air pressure being less. So this is relaxed. And when the diaphragm is contracted, it gets smaller. So I'm trying to make about the same size pleural cavity, but it gets smaller, so that means it pulls down. Okay, this is contracted, which means that this airspace in the pleural cavity gets bigger. Okay, and it does actually get, like, the ribs get pulled out as well. So it does get to be a wider space. So for the diaphragm, in order to breathe in, you want it contracted. So from relaxed to contracted. Okay, the external intercostal muscles, when they're contracted, they pull out. Okay, and the internal intercostals, when they're contracted, they pull in. So most of the time when you're breathing, when you're breathing out, you don't actually use the internal intercostal muscles. The internal intercostal muscles are great for if you need to cough. And when you're coughing, you want your space, your pleural cavity, to get smaller than it would normally get. So it pulls it in to help you cough. Okay, so if you're trying to breathe in, you want a bigger space, you want the external intercostal muscles to contract, which means the internal intercostal muscles have to relax. They are antagonistic muscles, which means when one's relaxed, the other's contracted. All right, so the answer is X, Y, and R. So that looks like it is C. Question 21. In an experiment to investigate anaerobic respiration, 2 bottles are set up in a warm room as shown. Okay, one of these bottles has sugar, yeast, and water, and the other bottle just has yeast and water. Now this is something that I've done in the past, quickly trying to set up a respiration experiment, putting yeast into and mixing it with water, and then moving on to the next step of setting things up and going, why hasn't yeast risen? Well, it's because the yeast needs something to eat. Okay, the yeast needs sugar to eat, to grow, and to respire with. So it's not going to produce any carb. The yeast is just going to not do anything if they don't have any food, just like you don't do anything if you don't have any food. So what would happen to each balloon after one day? Well, in a nice warm room, the yeast that has food is going to respire, and it's going to produce some gas. Okay, it's anaerobic respiration. It'll produce some carbon dioxide, but not as much as with aerobic respiration. Okay, but the yeast without any food isn't really going to do anything. It's going to stay exactly the same. So the answer is A. Certainly in B, it's that the second one would be wrong. In C, the first one would be wrong. And in D, it's their opposite. Question 22. The graph shows the lactic acid concentration in blood during and after exercise. Okay, you're exercising, and the lactic acid increases, and then you stop exercising, it's still increasing a bit, and then it drops quite quickly. Okay, so the continuation of which process accounts for the shape of the graph at Z? So at Z, it's still increasing a bit. Okay, so they've stopped exercising. They will be breathing deeply. So A is deep breathing. They will be breathing deeply, and that does help with losing. So that A would be responsible for basically from this section of the graph. Okay, high heart rate. No, that's not going to really be important. So A is not the answer because we're looking at why is it increasing, not why is it decreasing. High rate of breathing. No, that's not going to cause it to blood lactic acid to increase. Movement of lactic acid from the muscles. Yes, so the lactic acid is in the muscles, and then it has to go from the muscles into the blood so that the oxygen can react with it and break it down so it can continue aerobic respiration. So the answer is D. The lactic acid, the blood lactic acid concentration is increasing because more lactic acid is being replaced in the blood by the lactic acid that's in the muscles already. Question 23. What is the most important function of sweating? To remove excess heat from the body. Yes, that is the most important function of sweating. I'm going to circle that one. To remove excess salts from the body. Well, it does remove excess salts from the body, but that's not something you actually want. You like those salts. They help keep everything in balance. To remove excess urea from the body. No, it doesn't really remove excess urea. And to remove excess water from the body. It definitely removes excess water, but that's not something you want. You want that water. So the answer is A. Question 24. 4 effects of a specific hormone are listed. And what is this hormone? Okay, so let's look at it. Increase in blood pressure, increase in blood glucose concentration, increase in the rate of respiration, reduced blood flow to the gut. This looks like the sort of response you get if you were scared. It's a fight or flight response. And you get that with adrenaline. Okay? Glucagon makes glucose gone from the muscles. That's how I remember it. Or the liver. Insulin, well, that helps lower your blood sugars and stores the glucose. Testosterone, well, that's the male hormone. So the A, adrenaline, is the answer to this question. Question 25. The diagram shows a person sweating in hot weather. What part is played by sweat glands during the process of sweating? Are they the effector, the receptor, the sense organ, or the stimulus? Okay, the sweat glands, they do the end effect. So they're not going to be the stimulus. The stimulus is the heat, the sun. The sense organ, well, that would be your skin. The organ would be your skin. The receptor, well, those would be specific nerves inside the skin that help detect the stimulus. So it's not that. The effector is either a muscle or a gland. So the answer is A. Question 26. The diagram shows a synapse in a reflex arc. Okay, so we have 2 nerve endings, P and Q. You can't tell which is which. Okay? It says, what are the identities of the 2 neurons and in which direction does a neurotransmitter pass? Okay, so what we have to look at, we have to first of all look at, do the neurons that they state actually connect? Does the motor neuron connect with the relay neuron? Yes, that's a possibility. Does the motor neuron connect with the sensory neuron? No, because there is a relay neuron in the middle. Does a relay neuron connect with the motor neuron? Yes, that's a possibility. And does a relay neuron connect with the sensory neuron? Yeah, yes, there is. So don't forget, we have the sensory neuron, then we have the relay neuron, and then we have the motor neuron. All right, so that's the order it goes in. So motor to sensory, it's skipping the relay. Okay, now let's look at this. So P to Q, that would be motor to relay. Motor to relay, that would be going backwards. No, that doesn't make any sense. Now for C, Q to P, going backwards, that would be motor neuron to relay neuron. Again, still doesn't make sense. Exactly the same question, just opposite. So D, Q to P, so going backwards this way, and that's relay. So that's sensory to relay. That's going that way. That looks like D is the answer. Okay, that's it. Question 27. The immune system recognizes pathogens and attacks them. Which feature of pathogens triggers this response? So this has to be something specifically only on pathogens. So antibodies are not produced by pathogens. Antibiotics, they're things you take to kill bacteria, but they're not on the pathogens themselves. Antigens, the pathogens will have antigens that identify themselves. So I'd say that's an answer. And memory cells, those are in the body again. They're not on the pathogens. So the answer to this is C. Question 28. Which environmental factor is not always a requirement for seed germination? Sometimes it can be, but generally it has nothing to do with seed germination. Is it light, oxygen, a suitable temperature, or water? Now, if you think about it, you want a seed to germinate, you can leave it in the sun, or you can plant it under soil, which means if you have your soil, you have your little seed in the ground here, and it can still grow up, and still germinate. Get your little flower here. Okay, that means that light is not a requirement for seed germination because there's no light under the soil. Question 29. Which row shows the adaptive features of sperm cells? Okay, so these are things that are on the sperm cell to make them do what they need to do. So do sperm cells have a flagellum? Yes. That helps them move to where they need to be. Do sperm cells have a jelly coat? No. The egg cells have a jelly coat, so that isn't an adaptive feature of a sperm cell. Mitochondria, they have lots and lots and lots and lots of mitochondria because they need a quick burst of energy to do what they need to do, so it's present. So the answer to this question is C. Question 30. In some mammals, the allele for brown coat color is dominant to the allele for white coat color. So that means brown B would show brown, little b would show white, because you use the same letter for the recessive as you do for the dominant, but you use the letter for the dominant. Okay, which percentage of offspring will be white if a cross is made between two heterozygous mammals? So heterozygous means big B, little b. Okay, so we do our little Punnett square. Okay, big B, little b by big B, little b. We have two big B's, a big B and a little b, a big B and a little b, and a little b and a little b. So in order for them to be white, they have to have no brown alleles present, because the brown would overtake the white. So the answer is 1 out of 4, which is 25%. Question 31. Which term is defined as a length of DNA that codes for a protein? Okay, is it an amino acid? Nope, an amino acid is just something that makes up a protein. Is it a chromosome? Nope, a chromosome contains more than one length of DNA that code for a protein. It codes for more than one protein. Is it a gene? Yep, it's a gene. That is the definition of a gene. Is it a mutation? No, a mutation is a change in that code. So the answer is C. Question 32. The following are involved in protein synthesis. In which order do they become involved when proteins are made? Okay, so we have amino acids are assembled in order. That sounds like the final step. mRNA moves to the cytoplasm, mRNA is passing through a ribosome, and DNA is in the nucleus. Well, it starts off that DNA is in the nucleus, and it has to go from the nucleus to the cytoplasm. Once it's in the cytoplasm, it then finds a ribosome, so it can pass through a ribosome. And then once it's passed, while it's passing through the ribosome, it assembles the amino acids in order to make a protein. Okay, so the answer here is 4, 2, 3, then 1. That looks like answer C. All right. Question 33. What makes tongue rolling an example of discontinuous variation? Okay, discontinuous variation is caused by genes alone. So it's basically you have categories. You have type A, type B, type AB, or type O blood. Can you roll your tongue or can you not roll your tongue? That sort of thing. That's discontinuous variation. Continuous variation is, say, height can be a huge range, a huge continuum of ranges. So is it that a person can roll their tongue only when they are young? Nope. That doesn't say it's discontinuous variation. There are many different types of tongue rollers. That would make it sound like continuous variation. Tongue rolling has to be learned. Well, if you can learn it, it's not discontinuous variation. It's basically a skill. Tongue rolling is something that a person either can or cannot do. That is absolutely correct. Discontinuous variation, it's in two categories. One category of people can roll their tongue. The other category cannot roll their tongue. So the answer is D. Question 34. The distribution of the sickle cell allele in human populations varies in different areas of the world. What is an explanation for this difference? Is it that people that are heterozygous for the sickle cell allele have a resistance to cholera? Nope. They're just as susceptible to cholera as anyone else. Is it that people that are heterozygous for the sickle cell allele have a resistance to malaria? Yes. People who are carriers of sickle cell anemia but don't suffer from it, yes, they can pass on the sickle cell allele to their offspring, but they cannot, well, they're much more resistant to malaria. So if they get malaria, it would be much less severe. So that would be the answer. People that are heterozygous for the sickle cell allele are more likely to suffer from anemia? No, that would not give it a benefit to anyone. People with sickle cell anemia have more alleles. Nope. There's a dominant or a recessive. Same number of alleles, just whether they're dominant or recessive. Question 35. Nitrogen in the air cannot be used by plants until it is in the form of nitrates. That's because nitrogen in the air is N2, which has the form N triple bond N, and that triple bond is really, really hard to break. So which two processes convert nitrogen from the air into nitrates? Is it decomposition of feces and nitrification? Well, decomposition of feces, that means the nitrogen is in the feces. So no, it doesn't make sense. Denitrification and lightning. Denitrification is removing the nitrogen from being usable. So creating the N2, not creating the nitrates. So it's not the first one, not the second one. Nitrogen fixation by bacteria. That sounds good. Nitrogen fixation is fixing nitrogen into a form that's usable by the plant. And denitrification. Denitrification is exactly the opposite of nitrification. So no. And nitrogen fixation by bacteria and lightning. Yes, lightning has enough energy to break that triple bond, and certain bacteria can do that as well. So the answer is D. Question 36. What is shown by the widest block in a pyramid of numbers for a grassland ecosystem? Okay, so a pyramid of numbers basically can have any shape. Pyramid of biomass is always in a pyramid like that. So this is a biomass. But a pyramid of numbers can have any shape. It can have a big square on the bottom, small square, it doesn't matter. But this is a grassland ecosystem. And in a grassland ecosystem, the producer will be grass. Okay, so the bar on the bottom is the producer bar. That will be the biggest bar, because everything after that could be insects, or it could be large animals feeding off of it. Doesn't matter. The bar on the bottom will have the most numbers. Maybe, I don't know, I'm just making that one up. It could be anything. But the bar on the bottom will be grass. The number of grass plants that anything that feeds off of grass can eat will be a lot. So we're looking at the widest block on the pyramid of numbers. Is it all the consumers? Not all, so it's not saying all the blocks put together. These are all consumers. This is a producer. No. The consumers, none of the consumers will have more than the number of blades of grass. Number of grass plants, not blades of grass, but grass plants that can be eaten in a grassland ecosystem. The carnivores in the pyramid. So this is the herbivores. And anything above that would be the carnivores. And carnivores, well, there'll always be fewer carnivores than there are herbivores because it takes more energy. They have to eat a lot of herbivores. Okay? So it's not the carnivores or the consumers. The organisms at the top of the pyramid. Now, the very top of the pyramid are the apex predators. They're the ones that there's generally a lot fewer of them. So it's not going to be that one. So it's certainly going to be fewer of them than there will be grass plants. And the producers, it will be the grass plants. But that's only because this is a grassland ecosystem. If you're talking about, say, on a tree, there'll be one tree and lots of insects that feed off the leaves of that tree. So there could be a very wide variety. All right, so the answer here is D. Question 37. The diagram shows the depth and rate of breathing in a person at 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. All right, what happens to the person's breathing between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m.? Well, it doesn't really matter what time it is. Time 1 and time 2. Well, we're looking at the depth of breathing and the rate of breathing. The depth of breathing is on the y-axis here. So it starts off, the depth of breathing is however high that is. Looks about half a decimeter cubed, approximately that size. And at the second level, it's certainly much larger. It doesn't matter how much it has, but it has increased. So it increases. Now, the rate of breathing, if you look at this, in, let's say the first 10 seconds, there's approximately, give or take, 1-2 breaths. And in the first 10 seconds here, there's approximately 1-2-3 breaths, which means that the rate of breathing has increased. So the answer here is D. Question 38. Ligase enzymes are used in genetic engineering too. What are they used to do? Are they used to cut open plasmid DNA, insert plasmids into bacteria, isolate the DNA making up a human gene, and join the human DNA to plasmid DNA? Okay, so we're looking at the enzymes in genetic engineering. There's two main enzymes you need to know for genetic engineering. One is ligase, and one is restriction enzymes. Okay, now the restriction enzymes, those are basically the scissors. So they cut the human gene and they cut the bacterial plasmid. Okay, so they cut open the plasmid DNA, that's the restriction enzyme. Okay, and they isolate the DNA making up a human gene. Again, that's the same restriction enzyme. Okay. And inserting plasmids into bacteria, well, that just happens. They kind of mix them together, and they some of them join, some of them don't. And then you have the ligase, which is the glue. The glue joins the human DNA to the plasmid DNA. So that is D. So the join the human DNA to the plasmid DNA, that's ligase, that's the glue, that's it. Question 39. What is not a reason for conservation programs? Okay, conservation programs is to conserve things, to conserve environments, to conserve organisms. Is it to introduce new species, maintain nutrient cycles, maintain resources, or protect vulnerable environments? Well, protecting vulnerable environments, yes. You can protect them by conserving the environment or the organisms. Maintain resources, yes. You can maintain water cycles, the water resources, some of the plant resources. To maintain nutrient cycles, yes, you can it's to maintain a balance. Is it to introduce new species? Introducing new species can be used in conservation programs, but that is not the purpose of a conservation program. So no, A. And it's generally you do not want to introduce new species. You generally want to introduce species that are endangered, that are already supposed to be there, that should be there. New species implies invasive species. It's always dangerous to introduce new species. Question 40. Some examples of the waste products of human activity are discarded household rubbish, excess fertilizer, industrial chemicals, and untreated sewage. Which of these can both cause increased growth of aquatic plants? Okay, so the things that can cause increased growth of aquatic plants contain things like nitrogen, phosphorus, those sorts of molecules. Okay, so is it household rubbish? No, a lot of that's plastics and isn't actually useful to plants. Excess fertilizer? Well, fertilizer fertilizes plants. Aquatic plants are plants. So yes, it would be excess fertilizer. Industrial chemicals, no, they can kill plants quite often. Untreated sewage, well, that contains a lot of our waste products, urea, that sort of things that contain nitrogen that are good for plants. So excess fertilizer and untreated sewage, that is answer C. All right, that is the last question on this exam. I hope you found this useful and you will do very well in your final exams. If you liked it, please press the thumbs up button and would really appreciate it if you'd subscribe if you haven't already. If you have anything you'd like to say to us, please write them in the comment section below and have a great day.